Network. We will today tackle a topic of the new luxury in the post-pandemic world, so a new sort of angle to that as well. So we will be talking about the future wonders of the conscious traveler, as I call it, trying to really decode customer behavior shift for long-term travel and well-being recovery. Long-term, I think it's important to mention here. In the past weeks, I had an opportunity to host quite a few of these sessions of different webinars, of course, all of them by Zoom, on different range of topics. And I am truly amazed to see so many people willing to join and really share their ideas and look for inspiration. I think that one of the features that certainly stands out in the current reality, in the current crisis, is this notion of global connectivity, and we will talk about it a little bit later in the presentation as well. So thank you so much, Arnold, for the short intro. I will just add a couple of sentences to that, just to explain to everyone a little bit of my background. So as Arnold said, my name is Magdalena Osmola, and I am the Communications and Marketing Director at Vale Lobo. I joined this project last year with a goal of really stimulating our beautiful offering and slowly bringing in new angles as well to positioning of the resort. In terms of professional background, I have around 10 years of experience across different travel industry areas, ranging from travel trade, so I worked for quite a while for European Tour Operators Association, through agency side, and right into client-based roles. All of it in marketing, so really with special interest given to behavioral marketing, sort of decision-making processes, product development, and strategic long-term planning. I worked on different industry awareness campaigns, destination marketing campaigns, and more recently focused on building positioning for resort hotels, very much oriented with well-being. So well-being as well, one of my biggest passions really. I worked across different markets as well, most of it in London, and more recently moving to Portugal, to Algarve, of course. I'm really fascinated by neuroscience as well. As I mentioned, well-being trends and notions of both new luxury and also happiness research. And I'm sure that you will see a lot of that in the presentation. So also just a few words about of introduction to Vale Lobo, although I'm sure that everyone knows it quite well. As previously mentioned, I joined this fantastic but complex project last year. There is still a lot to do, but also a great potential. We are a top destination, top location with 2 kilometers stretch of sandy, beautiful beach, highly diverse types of properties around, also real community feel, spirit, and outstanding sport and outdoor facilities. We really focus on bringing out this essence of resort living, as I call it, through promoting active living, well-being, strengthening that community feel and the surrounding nature. And as much as we are a traditional luxury golf and family resort and destination, we also really try to sort of awaken this new luxury side that we will be discussing today. Okay, so my goal today is to share with you thoughts on shifting customer behaviors.
Sorry, Magdalena, can I interrupt you for 1 second? It's quite hard to hear you on occasions. Would you be able to maybe just adjust the sound a little?
Okay.
When you talk straight to the screen, we hear you perfectly, but when you talk down a little bit, it's very hard to hear you, okay?
It might be that I am moving away, that's why. Can you hear me like this when I'm closer?
That's perfect.
Okay,
that's perfect.
So sorry, really sorry
No
about
problem.
that. Let me know if it still continues. I will then put the headphones, maybe it will be easier, okay? So yes, again, my goal today is to really share with you thoughts on the shifting customer trends and in the new reality. So this is important to emphasize here. We are talking about this new reality, or as some people call it, the new reality as well. Okay, so let's start. And I will start in a little bit of an alternative way. I quite like starting from the negative. It is really a very good mind trick. And what it does, it really helps to bring us all together and realistically look at the current situation and the biggest threats that we are facing at the moment. So I'm really sure that pretty much every one of us had a moment or two when we got caught up in feeling anxious, scared, worried, or even helpless. So There would be a plenitude of reasons for that. Some of us would be, for example, worried about running future scenarios of economic crash, especially affecting tourism industry. Some of us would be fearing for our own health, for our loved ones, you know, a lot of very, very different reasons. For example, when I look at myself, I think that the predominant feeling in the last couple of months, I mean, the last 2 months, was really the feeling of helplessness. I come from a medical family, so literally everyone from my family back in Poland is currently involved in fighting the coronavirus at the forefront, and I feel helpless. I feel like I'm not able to help. I'm not able to even travel to be with them. But why I'm saying that is because it's really important to understand that this is a very, very normal reaction. So fear, worry, and anxiety are the most common reactions to the new reality, so to something that we have never experienced before. They are literally our fight or flight responses. And why does it happen? It is useful to look a little bit at the neurobiological perspective here. So think about human brain. Human brain actually evolved in an environment which is pretty much linear. What it means that the life of our grandfathers, so we are looking here really at evolution for thousands and thousands of years, but their life was in fact pretty similar to the lives of our grandfathers. They all lived pretty local in small areas. So in pandemic, we are experiencing something that is called linear bias. So our brain, in fact, has just a biological difficulty to understand and follow threats globally. So what is happening at the moment is actually not possible to be processed by our brains. What happens is that state of fear and anxiety really takes a big toll on our bodies. So it takes a lot of energy as well. And what is important to mention here is that the fear blocks learning, it blocks processing, it blocks creativity, and it eventually can lead to burnout. And I believe that for many, including some of the really top leaders out there, the fear has worked just like that. So it blocked sort of the future thinking, it blocked creative problem solving and planning. And I wanted to just talk a little bit about this new reality or the new normality from an individual's perspective still, because I think it's important to look at things from individual's perspective first. So we know that the last couple of months were quite challenging. Many individuals lost their usual structure that was binding their lifestyles. I mean, I can give you an example of myself. I pretty much lived in that previous reality of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then the weekend. Now we are living in a completely different reality. I think everyone will agree with me. And I think this is something that is just important to set sort of the base of what's happening at the moment. So we all know that we are facing unprecedented times. And this new perceived reality also calls for changing customer behaviors for sure. That also means that we should sort of try to redefine the new luxury. Okay, so going to sort of the notion of luxury. What is the new luxury? In fact, what it is, it's sort of a complete opposite to what you can see on the slide, so the sort of traditional description of the luxury. The new luxury, in fact, forgets material purchases of fast cars or designer bags, designer clothing, caviar, or expensive champagne. And it really focuses on those less tangible concepts, responding to the notions of self-actualization and transcendence, so being beyond all things. It encompasses the power of transformation over experience itself. It implies a constant journey towards self-improvement and self-optimization. It is all about altruism. It's a life and travel with purpose and meaning. And I think this is really the most important here. It is about moving away from the notion of just me and focusing much more on the notion of we. And happiness, passion, contribution, growth, well-being, sustainability, or community are only some of the usually mentioned attributes. But in the new world or the new reality, there are definitely some additional values that I think we should be considering. when looking at the new luxury customer. And I'd like to just go over a few of those chosen concepts before we dive into the trends themselves. Okay, so first of all, a concept and a framework that has been helping marketing for the last 70 years. So it's incredible how this is used across different areas for so long. Maslow's pyramid of needs. I'm sure that everyone has heard of it. It's really basis of happiness research. So what is important to mention here is that we normally assume and use it when talking about luxury, about positioning of luxury. And we can assume really that the evolved, awakened, new luxury traveler normally navigates throughout the last two levels of this pyramid. So looking at self-actualization and transcendence. But it is more than natural that when some of the more basic levels of the pyramid, such as security one that you can see here, are not completely satisfied, the individual will feel that they need to sort of drop down a little bit and get that security back before moving towards self-actualization and transcendence. So I think that this model still works and it's really highly contextual. So pandemic draws a global context and it's absolutely out of control of everyone. And I think that's also key here. We are in a situation that is out of control of everyone, and that includes our high-end luxury traveler as well. And a second model that I just wanted to share with you to understand their normal sort of perceived luxury from the perspective of the new luxury traveler is Martin Seligman's 3 types of happiness. So again, it's really basics of positive psychology. So what he says is that we are actually able to distinguish 3 different types of happy life or happiness. So first of all, first step is pleasant life. What it means is that we very often and consistently engage in activities that give us pleasure. At the end of the day, unfortunately, this is not very long lasting. So it's not very tangible experience. The second step is the good life, or also called engaged life. What it means is that in our life, we engage in those activities, but we also really use our strengths to do that. So we really go right into the moment and we use our best strengths to do that. But the sort of highest step of happiness and the highest step of happy life is the so-called meaningful life. Meaningful life is marked by purpose and by goal in life, by meaning, adding the meaning to one's life. So the happiness here comes from taking your strengths, so the same ones as in the good life, but using them to serve others or to serve a bigger purpose. It doesn't have to necessarily be others. So again, I think that most likely our new luxury traveler operates in that, or at least strives to operate in that last of the models, so the meaningful life. Right, so the post-pandemic luxury traveler, or as I like to call them, the post-pandemic conscious traveler. We are looking here at an even more evolved individual, even more so conscious, aware, awakened, interested, not only still looking for the journey towards self-actualization, but even more so interested in a niche, so transcendence, passion, multi-conceptual travel with purpose and with meaning. So we should no longer only look at the demographics when trying to describe them. So demographics meaning social status, age, location, income, etc. But really, we should dive into psychographics to describe them. So looking at beliefs, belonging, views, opinions. Our high-end client is certainly more conscious about the global connectivity that we already discussed before, and how micro-level actions have macro-level impact. So our simple behaviors, such as, for example, staying at home, can help globally. So everyone has a responsibility for the place we all live in. Right, and when travel is led by purpose, by meaning, a few key concepts emerge. It is important to still put emphasis on those that we discussed in the previous, in the past, but also it's really important to add some new ones here. So let's go through a mix of previously recognized trends and some of those which emerged just in the sort of like a product or byproduct of a lockdown and the pandemic itself. Okay, so starting off with the community, I think that the time we all spent in lockdown, making sure that our own and our families or our loved ones' life comes first, taught us a lot. Certainly, I can feel that from my side. We hopefully got a little bit of time to sort of calm down that fear, that anxiety, which is the normal first reaction to the new reality, and had some time to go really inwards and to reprioritize. This time strengthened the meaning of community for sure, but it also changed it slightly. So yes, in the first place, we are still looking at the micro level. So family and those nearest and dearest around us. But in the face of the global threat, the meaning of community definitely went global. We saw an amazing global connectivity, as we can see also today. I mean, everyone's using technology now. People all over the world were facing for the first time exactly the same threat. So we saw we saw really humanity for the first time gaining a meaning, being united. And we created or maintained transient communities, as I call them. So not only local, again, in the geographic sense or in the demographic sense, but also linked by beliefs, by opinions, by views. So as I was mentioning previously, those psychographic features. And I just wanted to share with you this quote here, because this is a great example. What we've seen during the pandemic and can really relate to psychographics is that we form different groups of people. Some groups of people will be the groups of believers. Some groups of people would be the followers of government policies, followers of World Health Organization policies. Some of them would be completely different, so sort of those conspiracy theory followers. Also some Samaritarians, so people who definitely felt like they just need to help stop anything that they were doing before. But again, this is a quote from my favorite futurist writer, and he really very nicely explains here that problem with actually raising those groups of people who believed in conspiracy. And I quite like to bring a little bit of an alternative, perhaps an unconventional example here to again explain the community and more so this transient and global community. This is a Burning Man festival. I don't know if some of you heard of it. I mean, it's really an event in the world scale. It's a transient city of around 70,000 to 80,000 partygoers, which is raised every year in the middle of Nevada's desert and attended by likes of Google CEO or Facebook CEO, etc. People are really coming there together, linked by similar cultural views, again, similar opinions, beliefs, ideas, future predictions, etc. In 2020, this event will not be happening, of course, because of the coronavirus, but this online community prevails. And the global audience is linked by the same view and the same psychographics. So again, the strength of psychographics here. It is exactly the same with the conscious traveler. So just to explain to you why I'm mentioning this example. The overall well-being of their tribe or their community is an important factor. So yes, perhaps we will see a little bit more of a travel limited to micro groups, so household, couple, family in the first place, destination a little bit more secluded or only domestic in the first place, only local, but the opinion of the tribe, the opinion of the community and where they holiday remains really key. So in the post-pandemic world, community and correctly identifying psychographics of your niche traveler continues to be really essential for any strategy that needs to be put together. And again, recommendation, for example, means so much more than just an advertisement. Okay, so moving on, sustainability. Sustainability has already been an important factor of any evolved new luxury traveler. The trend didn't need too much of an explanation, it never does. tourism industry actions such as reusing resources, recycling, offering vegan diets, employing local communities. These are really, really basics at the moment. Those inspired by the new luxury would always choose sustainable options. So they will also use brands that are responsible for their actions. So perhaps they would add carbon offsetting to their flights, they would choose eco accommodation, or to opt for experiences which are much more sustainable. So let's say wildlife watching instead of going to an aquarium. But in the last months, especially, we witnessed the lowest levels of pollution in many, many cities across the world. Himalayas are now clearly seen from India, from many, many different places for the first time in tens of years. So this is something, a complete evenement. We also know that wild animals started to sort of take over the streets of many, many different cities. You can see here a couple of examples. So we know that in Venice, the canals suddenly started to be completely clear. In Wales, the wild goats invaded the streets. Flamingos returned to India and really invaded Albania, where they couldn't see them for many, many years. And the picture in the middle is actually from my own hometown back in Poland. So you have the deer completely overtaking the streets as well. So I think it's important to mention that this has been happening. So we've been faced with a clear proof that the planet is healing, while some of our normal but very destructive human activities stop. And I think faced with that reality, perhaps many, and certainly including our new luxury traveler, will feel that perhaps the old normality is not necessarily good to be getting I think that many destination sort of new luxury seekers really will put more emphasis on destination sustainability, and that the only luxury tourism going forward would be the responsible one. So we will stop having this distinction between these two. In the longer term, also air travel is something that definitely will be discussed. You can see already that at the moment there's a lot of pressure from the governments on the airlines to start bringing in some more sustainable fuel solutions, and especially facing this crisis where the governments will have to be actually giving some money to the airlines not to fall for bankruptcy. And moving forward, again, another trend that is still very much linked with the previous one. So this realization of pure necessity of deeper connection to nature is very clear after the lockdown. So nature is still definitely the only medicine with no side effects. And I believe that after weeks spent in city apartments, that daily outdoor activity or daily outdoor exercise was truly, truly priceless. And what about spending a whole week in the pure wilderness now? I certainly think that I'm not sure if I would be able to survive without my daily run in the forest here. So definitely nature still, and even more so now, becomes something that the new luxury traveler is seeking. In the short term, there is a bit of paradox here, and I just wanted to mention this, because obviously after years of fight against the single-use plastic, we suddenly realize that in the face of humanity threat, we go back to using that plastic quite often. So thinking about PPE, thinking about the small plastic bottles with hand disinfectants. So hopefully this is just a crisis solution and not a long-term, not sort of a long-term strategy, and I'm pretty sure it's not. But again, quite important to mention here how priorities change, even thinking about this Maslow's pyramid of needs now as well. Okay, and moving forward, well-being, so that healthy body, healthy mind concept. I believe that mental and physical well-being were obviously already on top of on mind of the new luxury traveler. In the post-pandemic world, self-care and mindfulness will become really a necessity. Even in the midst of the lockdown, we've seen online well-being having incredible boost with lots of different workouts, meditation sessions, breath work, and spiritual guidance becoming simply indispensable daily part of many people's lives. And I'm sure that if you never heard of, let's say, Kundalini yoga or loving kindness meditation, at least now after the lockdown, it's very possible that you heard of these concepts. And again, it's quite natural that the pandemic and post-pandemic world increased anxiety levels. So again, going back to this neurobiological background that we discussed at the beginning of the presentation, and that anxiety stays with societies and probably will stay for quite longer. So that means that mental fitness will really continue to be top of the list, especially for the luxury consumer. So well-being is all about prevention at the end of the day. Building immunity is linked to holistic well-being, so holistic approach towards daily lifestyles and building really healthy habits. The pandemic have gave an even more special meaning to healthy body, healthy mind concept. And just a couple of examples here. So we know that programs such as helping us to de-stress, to recharge our minds, to get fit, to center, to find inner peace, and fight sleep deprivation, that's a big one, will be sought after the pandemic for sure. Spirituality in all forms, in my opinion, is something that we should really look for as well. It's very interesting to see that actually Vatican has started a study together with Global Wellness Institute to define healthier preventative measures for the healthier societies of the future. So perhaps it's a little bit of a response to inability of some of the governments to lead during the pandemic. Okay, so moving forward, looking at passion, purpose, and contribution. So I think that it's absolutely obvious that people who will travel first will be those driven by passion, which always happens. But I just wanted to talk about some other concept here. I'm not sure if any one of you heard about the so-called 20% Google rule. It is a rule that is implemented by Google across their different offices. What it does is that Google allows older employees to get 20% of their time to actually spend it on their own passion. So it can be a completely side project led by their passion. Why do they do that? They do that because there's a lot of research that supports the statement that the more we enter the so-called flow state, and flow state is something that we experience when we are really completely involved in the task. So it can be something that we are very, very passionate about, and then we can enter that flow state. So the more of that flow state we experience in daily life, the more productive we become in the long term. And this is what Google are using. So it is quite obvious that passion is what makes the world go round. And I think in order for the world to come alive, we really need more people fueled by passion and coming alive doing things that allow them to wake up every day with a purpose. These are, at the end of the day, pioneers and really innovators. So the pandemic reality has allowed many of us to rethink what drives us. I do not want to make a really bold statement here and compare it with that 80% of furlough scheme, leaving us with 20% of time to perhaps involve in our passions. But definitely the future luxury travel will even more so be linked with passions, purpose, and contribution. We have seen that helping those in need is key for the global health. So developing a vaccine has become a joint effort and goal. Being able to make a change will continue to be top of the list of the affluent new luxury traveler. That translates into many different ideas. So think about volunteerism, learning a new skill whilst traveling. It can be niche hobby travel, a favorite sport, even favorite movie or activity. Okay, and really linked to this previous concept, although we all talk about experiences nowadays, we should always remember that actually at the moment, we are already one step forward and right into the so-called transformation economy. So transformation becomes the product, not just experience itself. It is where experience itself comes with a long-lasting benefit. So that's the key here. We are experiencing something, but we have this as a long-lasting benefit. So brands tap into transformation economy when they deliver an offer which enhances their customers' life on the journey towards self-actualization. So, for example, a rise of CrossFit idea, CrossFit culture is a really good example here. Okay, next trend, humane technology. This topic in the past has always been discussed in the context of making sure that we move away from those destructive and destructive effects of technology. So talking about, for example, social media bullying, internet addictions or digital addictions in general, fake news, all those sort of negative effects of technology. So the next step actually during the pandemic was where technology suddenly started to show its light side. So finally, technology started to be used sustainably and help to connect people rather than distracting them. Zoom conferences, WhatsApp groups, FaceTime, you name it. I mean, lots of different technologies to connect people. And the next step as well was sort of starting to use technology to help send the right message. I mean, you can see a very small example here of those little animations that were used to sort of teach people about making sure that they stay home to flatten the curve. But this goes much further, and that's what I wanted to emphasize here. We are talking about really innovative apps, such as alerting beach capacities or beach availabilities, track and trace, which from now definitely will become something that is indispensable and the only way moving forward. Complete contactless solutions for check-in, for checkout, AI-led robots disinfecting the rooms. This is something that we've seen a lot as well. Voice search, definitely something that will come back to sort of serve guest service options and many, many other uses of technology. So again, humane technology. And a new dimension of clean. So we know that reinstalling customer confidence in travel is strongly linked with the brands themselves. So we're talking about airlines, destinations, properties, agents, ground handlers, being able to really assure the highest levels of safety and hygiene. So this obsession with cleanliness will not go away for a significant time, and it might last long after the pandemic itself. It is great to see fast adaptability of especially our industry. So that includes many of different new solutions. For example, sun loungers and tables separated by plexiglass screens, all body disinfecting cabins. So this is something that has been implemented in Hong Kong at the airport. So it's a cabin where a person can go inside, and in 40 seconds, it actually cleans both the clothing and the skins from all bacteria and viruses. We've looked into temperature checks at hotels, drones disinfecting community areas in hospitality, and also monitoring crowding, cabin crew PPE, uniforms, robots disinfecting hotel rooms. So this is definitely a lot of different things that is happening in our industry at the moment, and probably will stay for a long time, and we'll change all the procedures that we've seen being introduced in daily lives. Okay, and moving forward, another trend that is one of those new ones that we certainly have to start looking at the moment, that affects everyone in the travel industry, is transparency. So really emphasized by the pandemic, certainly, and especially again in travel. So what does it mean, transparency? So there is a growing need for brands to become good brands. Customers will expect total transparency, and especially high net worth individuals will increasingly want to see positive impact of the brand on local and global environments. So brand communications need to be compassionate, understanding, and empathetic. The pandemic reality really called for year-long flexible policies. So we've seen a lot of those introduced by tourism companies. This is a must in building trust and really reinstalling customer confidence. In fact, the peak pandemic time was, and certainly still is, when such approach was expected of anyone in the industry. So connections through offering free online resources, support giving to healthcare, volunteering for the community and volunteering for the team initiatives. These were the actions that the new evolved customer of the future definitely will. And transparency across all the different areas, so going from marketing through to operations, also means moving forward to the idea of unity again. So it is human to human actions that matter. People want to trust the brand and feel like they are a valued part of it. So it's no longer brand to cut, it's in fact a human to human one. But you can ask, how do we do that? So it was really a short overview of different trends, of different concepts that are really linked to the new luxury traveler and reframed in the new reality or the new normality perspective. But how do we really shape our marketing and product development strategies to encourage and match those different trends? So I wanted to go through a couple of ideas here, and starting from crisis communication. So yes, I want to emphasize that we are still in crisis communication state at the moment, perhaps with a little bit of recovery to it, but it's still crisis communication. So in the first place, we look at the language and the tone of voice of our communication. So our brand needs to show that mind shift towards practical optimism as a whole. So this is in order to inspire the potential traveler with such a view. So really being optimistic rather than just pessimistic about things. It's time for positive and responsible communications. It just shows how a slight change of wording can completely change people's thinking. Right, and I just like to bring a slightly different analogy here, which I quite like to use to illustrate that truly there is nothing more powerful than the mindset. So I don't know if you know, but our eyes always see our nose. So it's a fact, we always actually see our nose. But our brain, so our mind, chooses not to see it, because if we were seeing it on a daily basis, it would be distracting. So again, this is a small analogy that just illustrates how mindset is extremely powerful, but also how easy it can be influenced and changed. So something to definitely use when forming future strategies. How can we apply this analogy and sort of trying to change the mindset of our potential guests? In communications, again. So examples from the peak of the pandemic. So we all talked about social distancing. However, it is not social distancing. In fact, it's actually physical distancing. So I don't know about you, but in the midst of pandemic, I managed to, for example, in 1 week, speak 4 times with my family in Poland. One time had virtual lunch with my friends in Lisbon. I also managed to even FaceTime with my friend who is in the van parked in the middle of Mexican jungle. So I think that definitely not social distancing. It was much more of that physical distancing, but again, emphasizing global connectivity. But more about that, it's not that we were in the lockdown. It's much more time to pause, to reflect, to reprioritize. It's also, we weren't quarantining, we were actually protecting ourselves, protecting our communities and those close to us. We also are in all of this together, and we are getting through this, not we will get through this. So again, a small change of wording here. We need to really make an effort to change the pandemic fear and anxiety into calm responsibility. And I just wanted to share with you a couple of examples from our recent focus campaigns across Vale do Lobo. So throughout the crisis, we really made sure to stay connected, stay in touch with our clients, and always think about communicating with empathy at heart. So you can see that message here that we developed really early in the crisis communication stages. We also definitely believe that sharing is caring. So as soon as the pandemic lockdown started, we introduced this feature of stay at home, where all our audiences were able to sort of engage in daily activities with many of different actors and different artists and different teachers that normally we have at Vale do Lobo for all our residents, but suddenly, of course, doing all of this online. And I think it was extremely important for the communities. It's also all about phased plan to reinstall the confidence. And this is really looking at this phased recovery plan, so as to say, and we should all start from macro level. So really, we should all start to look at Portugal as a whole, so destination as a whole, or even can be regional, so the Algarve, and try to leverage the positive side of managed development of the pandemic in Portugal. So we've been actually covered by some of the best media from across the world. I just chose 3 examples here: Financial Times, Forbes, and Der Spiegel. I mean, this is fantastic to see, and definitely something that everyone on the micro level should try to leverage. It's all about reassuring and again, making sure that we are reinstalling this confidence, so showcasing our measures in terms of hygiene, and in terms of safety, security, of health of future guests. Communications, communicating those extra steps is extremely important. I thought at the beginning that perhaps I'm not sure if I'm very comfortable with doing so, but we definitely have started to see that this is extremely important. People have to see it, it's basic. You have to show how you are implementing all those different measures. And of course, it's all about moving forward as well to redesign the tourism product, redesign our offering, and really try to fuel the passion and provide all those aspects that are currently being missed by many across the globe. So experiences designed by Vale do Lobo team focus on illustrating our resort living. So it's all about active living, well-being, it's about sustainable living and nature, purpose and meaningful living. So all considering, of course, and leveraging as well those limitations in relation to safety and security measures. And at the end of the day, it's all about inspiring. I think that moving forward, in order to attract this new evolved customer of the future, the inspire, the dreaming stage of customer cycle will become much, much more important. Okay, thank you so much. So hope you enjoyed this. And we can start the discussion with some questions. I would like to definitely hear your opinions and ideas as well.
Thank you very much, Magdalena. That was really, really good. Anju, do you want to start maybe with a couple of questions? And then we'll take everybody else? Or... You're on mute, Anju.
Did you get that question? Sorry, guys.
I didn't, Andrew, sorry.
We should be in practice by now, shouldn't we, after all these Zooms? Magdalena, that was as inspirational, as visionary, and as thought-provoking as ever. I thought to myself, as and when the CMO for Algarve Tourism role becomes available, then I will be recommending you. Okay.
I don't think that you can see the red on my face now, but definitely there is a lot of it.
And that's really sincere. A couple of questions. My first question to you is this: how can the Portuguese tourism sector take benefit from this C-19 situation? And what do you consider of more relevance, perhaps, to those of us that are Algarve focused? What do you think is the long-term outlook for the Algarve within that context?
Mm-hmm. So I think that, I mean, I tried to sort of bring in a couple of slides that probably answered that question in a way. So first of all, we should all start looking at those silver linings of COVID-19 for the travel industry. I mean, you know, in a way it's difficult to find it. Definitely we can do that. So I would say that first of all, Portugal, so again, looking at this macro level as a destination, I mean, we've been featured by the best media in the world as a good example. So I think this already gives us definitely a head start. When you look at other destinations, you know, there's been, I mean, much more troubles. Think about Spain, for example. So I guess this is something that we have to leverage. And at the end of the day, all the different small tourism businesses should use it as a whole. So maybe something that perhaps, you know, the Turismo de Portugal could possibly release as a statement that we could all ever work on and use in our daily communications as well. So again, the safest destination to travel to post-coronavirus, for sure. And it's not only safest because of the levels of coronavirus, but it's also safe because of how the government handled it. And I think that's very important to mention. Of course, you know, before the pandemic, we all were discussing over tourism. So I think this is something that perhaps is not going to be a big of a problem at least in this year. And this is really time to sort of, as I call it, try to flatten the seasonality curve. So, you know, we have exactly the curve like in pandemic, which is the seasonality curve. And I think that now perhaps all of us should understand that this is not sustainable. It cannot be like that. It should be flattened. So I guess a campaign to flatten the seasonality curve would be something to consider. Also, I mean, something that I talk a lot about, sustainability. So as I was saying, I think many people have noticed that the planet is healing without those destructive activities of humans, so the air travel, etc. So I think we can leverage that as well in a way that we have to showcase that we have a sustainable environment here. And also, I think Portugal has, for example, the lowest levels of air pollution. So something that people will be looking for. So definitely they will be going to places where they can experience this pure natural environment. I think this is potentially a little bit of a problem for Algarve, because we have, you know, destinations like Alentejo or Comporta, all these beautiful, a little bit more wild areas that are emerging now, especially for that customer that I've been talking about. I think here is a challenge. How do we kind of change this? But again, I mean, Algarve has so many different areas that are not necessarily promoted enough. I mean, think about Morshik. It's one of my favorite places in the Algarve. But even, you know, even the seaside, I think we have to sort of show the nature rather than the developments themselves. So that is quite important to mention. I don't know, I think that, again, it's looking at the silver linings of coronavirus in general. There's a lot of things that will be improved thanks to that, I think. Hotels will realize, for example, that they shouldn't just focus on those numbers, so making sure that all the guests eat in-house, all the guests, you know, spend the money in-house, but they should actually cooperate with all the different businesses around and allow people to explore and to, you know, not to feel like closed in one place as well. So a lot of different things, I would say.
Very good. It's very positive. The subject of well-being, and perhaps you could assist everybody in the audience to for us to understand your definition of well-being by comparison to the increasingly used term wellness. But based upon your definition of well-being, what do you think is the demand opportunity for the Algarve for well-being, and what are the implications of that opportunity for the sector in terms of how the sector would need to react in terms of product packaging and programming, which you obviously evidently begun to put in place in Val de Lobo?
We start, you know, we are still in early stages, I would say, but we try to implement this angle as well. I think it's not very easy in Algarve. There's a lot of stigma, as I always call it. I think that often we sort of use wellness because we think that it's only spa connected, okay? And I think that actually well-being and wellness, because these terms can be used interchangeably, it's not about spa. In my opinion, it's about everything outside. It's much more holistic. You know, even sort of simple daily activities, simple sport activities like golf or tennis can be part of a well-presented well-being package, because it's all about active living and getting fit. So I think this is what we are not understanding very well in Algarve at times as well. And again, I'm a little bit worried that sort of those destinations a little bit above us, where they have this offering of more sort of eco and sustainable residencies, etc., have really nailed that, because they started to develop when this concept was already out there. And I think, you know, obviously Algarve has been developed much earlier than that. So I think now we just have to sort of implement those changes in marketing marketing mainly. So not necessarily the product, because again, simple golf or very good organic meal, fish and vegetables can be well-being offering. So it's about communicating that rather than anything else. I also think that in the Algarve there's a lot of spirituality. So there's a lot of those retreats that talk about spirituality, but they are all a little bit in a on a different level. It's still a little bit hippie, so as to say. So I think that, you know, a certain group of people, those awakened, conscious travelers from big cities, they start to really look for spirituality. So you have concepts like, for example, urban witchery. I don't know if you've heard of it, but in London it's really, really big. You have things like women's circles, you know, the breathwork retreats, or even plant medicinal retreats. And, you know, everyone is thinking that this is like a hippie offering, but it's not. It's actually for really high-end luxury traveler. So I think that what we are lacking is that offering exactly. So, you know, high-end accommodation, really comfortable, safe, plus this type of different spiritual retreats as well. So I'd like to see that as well in the future, I guess.
A revolution. Thank you very much, Magdalena.
Thank you.
Okay, maybe we can hear from anybody else. Some questions or comments?
Yes, it's always nice to open to the public.
Yeah. I'm sure they will be.
It's Christine. Arno, can I? Yes, yeah, I'll talk next then.
Who do we have first?
I was just wondering if there's anybody on the call who's working in the industry in Ireland who has any views on comparative experiences.
Not too sure.
Okay. Just interestingly, I'm working with a client in Ireland who's just acquired a large site in Wicklow, and they're looking at this whole concept of the long-term, you know, sustainable tourism, et cetera, for the site. And they're not a hotelier; they're a commercial property business, but the proprietor has an interest in it. So I joined the call really to see if I could pick up any tips for them. But if there is anybody who works in this area in Ireland, I'd be interested to perhaps have a conversation with them as well.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting, Christina, but this is something that as well is going to consider that type of targeting, so sustainability as well, well-being perhaps in place?
Yes, yeah.
Right. I think we had Dee as well with a question.
Hi, Magdalena. I'm in Ireland, and you may have noticed I had to move indoors because, forgive me for saying this, it was too hot outside, and I'm in Ireland. Wow, we've never said that before. I just wanted to ask Magdalena. I was at the tourism conference in September. You're fantastic. You're so dynamic. You're so passionate. I'm planning on moving to Portugal at some stage. I was hoping maybe this year, maybe next year. And my industry is letting agent, estate agent, that sort of thing. But I've previously been in beauty therapy, massage therapy, that sort of thing. I just wanted to ask you, like, where do you see, because of your speaking in September, I thought, I would love to get back into that again. But where do you see the recruitment side now of where you guys are at, you know, with the wellness industry, with everything that you do, jobs at the moment? I mean, where do you see that in the future?
Well, it's very difficult at the moment, you know, we have to remember that. And I probably would go back to this idea of flattening the curve of seasonality, because at the end of the day, the employment in tourism, especially in the Algarve, has never been sustainable. We have to be honest about that. You know, there's been a lot about making contracts just for people to cover that peak season, and then, you know, they had nothing to do for the rest of the year. So I guess we have to look at something like multidisciplinary training, so people are able to, I think that tourism has to be much more involved and sort of integrated within other areas of okay? So the idea of sustainable tourism at the end of the day is to help the local economy as well. So, you know, if you have, for example, development where you also have a plantation of food, for example, you know, you're putting together the two different areas of policy management. So I think this is something to look at. It's going to be difficult for sure for just kind of tourism-led employment. But again, if we flatten the curve, that means that there's more sustainability and more people can benefit from that in the longer term rather than just in the peak of the season. So that's probably what I would say.
Yeah, that it would be nice to see that, especially in that industry, wellness, well-being, being more, you know, not just seasonal, that's, you know, to try and promote that coming out in the wintertime when it's quite miserable up here, to promote that, come down to the Algarve where still you've got some sunshine, you know?
Exactly, because you don't, at the end of the day, it's not necessarily about this peak of sunshine. But again, I'm afraid that, you know, in order to implement that, we have to think about bigger policies again. A great example here, New Zealand. I mean, I love the Prime Minister there. All her policies are just outstanding and so forward thinking. She bases all her policies on well-being. I don't know if you know that, but
Absolutely.
They stopped measuring, you know, per capita gains and things like that. They just measure per capita well-being and happiness of the society. So I don't know if you've heard, but as a result of coronavirus, they introduced a four-day working week.
Yeah.
So they changed from a 5-day working week is now a 4-day working week. How fantastic. I mean, this is, again, it's a governmental policy really trying to see that perhaps we shouldn't be so caught up in that usual, you know, the previous reality, but really try to see the silver lining and bringing some benefit from that. So I think we need that, unfortunately. You know, it's difficult for tourism and tourism businesses to fight that war by ourselves. So it needs a little bit more of a governmental policies to take into consideration.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Magdalena, I was also interested to hear from you about the fact that obviously now for the next few months in the short term, I mean, the international travelers, international clients is going to be reduced because, you know, of the restrictions and the traveling. So, you know, here in Portugal, they are saying the Portuguese to go on holiday in Portugal. So would that change a little bit your marketing, your messages? And do you think that it's you know, talking about the seasonality, do you think that it's a market? I mean, it's a small market, of course, but is that a market that could help? Yeah.
I think in a way, yes, for sure. I mean, we've seen already a lot of bookings to Vale do Lobo from northern areas of Portugal, and June and July is definitely going to be focused around that. I think that, you know, never, and particularly in the Algarve, we never focused our policies and our strategies on domestic tourism that much. And now everyone will be doing that. Of course, as you said, it's a small percentage of the market, so probably not enough to fill up all the spaces available in the Algarve. But again, in long term, definitely something that will help, again, flattening the seasonality curve. So maybe doing more sort of weekend trips. And again, if the government introduced 4-day working week, it would be fantastic to see that, you know, 3-day weekends travel here. Like, it's also probably another area to really focus on at the moment is residential tourism. So I think people, when even talking about international tourism now, so those people who will start traveling, perhaps they will want to travel for longer and stay for much longer. So I think developing packages for that is quite important. For example, at Vale do Lobo, just before the coronavirus, actually, we developed a new package which was sort of targeting those digital nomads, so people who can work from anywhere in the world. So we had a long stay, a month stay in one of our private villas or apartments, especially for them. You know, it included a electric bike usage as well, and a free internet and all those different things. So I guess this is also a potential, and maybe in fact related to some of the domestic tourism as well. I can imagine that some people from the north would like to escape that area and stay perhaps for a month or even two in the Algarve if they could. So I guess something in that area is important as well.
Sure. Thank you. I mean, on the nomads, I remember we had a chat with the Algarve, the Faro University, with the iTech, the Algarve Tech,
yes,
who are trying to do that. They were very interested to get, nomads in the tech industry from Ireland to come and work during the off season, but also to work, but also continue their education with training with the university and everything. So definitely
that's great, definitely.
I think it's really important to point out that there isn't a magic bullet for overcoming seasonality, that you're not going to say, look, it's wellness, that's the answer. It's not. You have to take a total market approach, and you have to look at how people live and how you can encourage them to live differently in a different place for a certain amount of time. One of the things, I mean, Ireland is a great tourist business, and it isn't because of the weather. It's because they went and addressed other things in the market that appeal to people. So you have, for example, a lot of cultural activity, a lot of artistic activity. A lot of the idea is that, yes, you get out into nature, but you bring your rain gear and you dress appropriately. A lot of water sports, a lot of mountaineering, all of those things. And even though all of those things exist in Portugal, the marketing isn't done towards, so they don't market towards a cultural aware market. They don't market towards people who are interested in walking holidays and all of those things, even though they all exist. They don't do food tourism very well. And it's strange, there's no cooperative marketing between areas either. So for example, areas in the Algarve, which are very, very well set up to do cooperative marketing and to build festivals, events and programs in the off season, they just don't do it. And until tourism marketing in the Algarve or in Portugal as a whole takes that up, the issue of seasonality is always going to be there. And I can tell you that unless you address it all, it won't work,
I so much agree, and again, I think it's about developing that offering based on passion. So again, passion drives the world. And I have to say, I'm a big fan of Irish Swiss board and the marketing Mark. I know Mark from the past, who deals with marketing there. So I think that you have fantastic campaigns. In Portugal as well, I have to be very honest, I really do like the latest campaigns. I think that they were one of the tourist boards that really tackled the crisis very well, and quite quickly, they came up with those videos, etc. But again, in terms of offering, I definitely agree. You have to find the niche. It's more of the niche groups of travelers rather than one product for everyone. It's impossible to do that. So.
Yeah, I mean, I was involved in the marketing segment program in Ireland. We did a bit of it, when we were one of the target groups, because I was running a tourist group in a town, and they came out to us and they said, well, what do you guys need? And then they came up with their marketing segmentation based on the idea, well, we're not a sunshine destination, so how do we get people all year round? And it was very much, they had 5 and they targeted 3.
Yes, you have, for example, fantastic movie-led tourism campaigns, right? So a lot of people, Game of Thrones and etc. So it is really smartly developed. And I think in here in the Algarve, we can do the same. So many different passions that we can really show that we are not yet perhaps doing. And it's a good time now to start.
Does anyone else any questions?
Yes, any more questions?
No, nothing to finish out with, Andrew, no?
We have run over a little bit, I think, already. So.
Yeah, no, we're fine. Listen, Magdalena, that was really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Look forward to hearing at the end of the summer if we still stick with seasonality as to how it's going, or whether we're managing to make inroads into overcoming this and driving the tourist season. I think this year of all years is the year to do it, because people who have not done their summer holidays, they will be kind of moving them out into the winter. And I think a coherent approach to attracting people is really essential now, but no reason why it can't be done. So best of luck with it. I hope it goes really well.
Thank you.
And everybody else, great to see you on the call. And hope to see you next week. We've got an interesting one for anybody who runs a small business or a medium-sized business, any size business, in fact. A new member, Dr. Shane Farrelly, is going to talk to us about managing stress in employees, recognizing it and strategies for dealing with it. So that would be of interest to people who are managing teams who are coming back into work next week. So I look forward to seeing you all then. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much,
Thank you so
Magdalena.
much.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Bye.
Everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.